seeing some really positive data coming in, suggesting that customers are starting to look at travel and have much more of an intention to travel. This data here you can see is from Citibank, and it tracks website heat maps and visits to websites. And you can see across three of the most prominent travel verticals, hotels, tour operators and airlines, that actually there's been a marked improvement in recent weeks since the real depths of the crisis. And whilst website visits are still tracking behind where they would have been last year by some considerable margin, there has been a vast improvement. Those customers that are looking to book, though, are definitely leaving it late. This is some data that IATA released, and it showed that of the flights departing in June, around 40% of those were booked with less than 3 days before that departure date, compared to what would normally be something like 18% last-minute bookings. So really challenging if you're a tour operator or an airline trying to run businesses, plan cash flow and plan resources with those sorts of constraints. That's the obvious consequence, I think, of the amount of uncertainty that's out there at the moment. Another interesting thing we're seeing, though, is a real divergence in marketing strategies to try to coax those customers into booking more quickly. On the one hand, you have companies, airlines, cruise operators, agents. You can see some examples on the screen there where they've really gone with a marketing strategy of flexibility, book late, pay low deposits, cancel at the last minute if you need to. And on the other side, you are still seeing some operators that are going with the price discounting, offering £100 off or whatever it might be. I think it's very hard to work out which one is the right approach, but I think my sense is that at this point, what's playing more on customers' minds is the health crisis and is the potential lack of ability to travel to a destination or indeed to be quarantined in some way when you return. And so arguably knocking £100 off is going to do little to stimulate more demand, and all it's going to do is really hurt margins. I think what we do have to be aware of, though, coming down the tracks, and again, the most recent government economic data is not painting a pretty picture. Unemployment rates right now are just over 3%, and it equates to about 1.3 million people in the UK. But there's a whole range of expectations as to where that might go once furlough ends and as the economic crisis continues to deepen. And those range anywhere from an increase up to that sort of 7.5% you can see there, all the way up to the 11 or 12% that we saw back in the 80s. That could equate to something like 3.5 million people out of work, unemployed. And of course, in those sorts of circumstances, that is really where the concerns are less about health and less about the quarantine and lack of mobility, and much more about financial concerns. Really, that is where the discounting could help. I guess we'll have to see how the next few months play out, but really interesting to see how different companies are approaching it at this point.